Okay, so let's get started. We start by making our pastry. We're going to need 1/3 cup of sugar and a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of cardamom, a package of dry yeast, a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 eggs, 1/2 cup of warm milk, and 3 cups of flour. We're going to start by adding our warm milk and sprinkling our yeast into it. I'm going to stir that up a little bit. And to that we're going to add our sugar and our salt. We'll also add our vanilla. Give it a stir. We're just going to let that sit for a moment to activate the yeast. Just make sure it's thoroughly stirred and incorporated. You can just cover that for a moment and let it sit until you see it get a little bit of foam on top. It just takes a few moments, maybe 5 minutes. We're ready to incorporate the rest of our ingredients into our yeast mixture. Just want to give it another stir here. At this point, we add our eggs and our cardamom. I'm going to beat those eggs into it well. Until all your ingredients are thoroughly incorporated. Cardamom and the vanilla smell fantastic already. This makes a very fragrant, delicious pastry. At this point we can start adding our flour. It's well worth taking the time to make this at home. It'll still be, even though it's not a tremendously low calorie pastry, it'll still be far healthier than anything you might purchase outside the home or anything processed or things like that. This will still be far healthier for you. So we're going to add our flour in a little bit at a time. It's actually a very easy pastry to make. Aside from the waiting time, you have to do a barrage and fold over as you would with a puff pastry or a croissant. That's what gives it its flakiness and its rise. And it's the way a true Danish is made. I know a lot associate it with a doughy yeast type of pastry. So aside from the waiting time, it's a very, very easy pastry to make. Like I said, it's a very enjoyable pastry to have. So I don't know if you can see here. You just keep stirring in until it thickens up on you. Like I said, it's about 3 cups of flour, give or take. There are a lot of variables that come into play when you're baking: altitude, weather, humidity in the air. All that play a role, as do quality of ingredients. The flour might be different in one area than another. So many variables that occasionally you have to gauge for yourself. Like I said, approximately 3 cups of flour. This is starting to thicken up a little bit to the point where we can knead it. So we're going to take our spoon out. It's a little bit of a sticky dough. because of the sugar in there, so you do want to wait till the last minute before you have to actually work with it by hand. So just knead it as you would bread, bringing the sides into the center and pushing down. And just keep kneading until you have a nice soft ball. Turn it over, make sure you have all the flour from the bottom. And once it's in a nice bowl, dust it with a little flour. I like to leave a little bit of flour at the corners for dusting. I like to dust with flour. Cover it and let it sit for about half an hour. After half an hour, our dough is ready to be rolled out. So what we want to do is flour our surface. Make sure it's well floured. I like to work on wax paper. It protects both my dough and my counter. I secure my wax paper with just a bit of dough. It helps it to stay secure, hopefully. And we just take our dough and roll it out into a 12 by 16 rectangle. It's very easy to work with. It's not a difficult dough at all. You can try patting it down into an approximate rectangle first. As I said, very easy to work with. Again, not a difficult pastry to make at all, aside from the waiting time when you fold the barrage into the dough and let it sit. It's a really easy pastry to make and absolutely delightful. You want to fold your barrage into it. To make a barrage, you need approximately 2 sticks of butter that's softened to room temperature. And you want to add about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of flour to it. And just mix that up well. Once that's done, you take your butter and mixture and spread it onto 2/3 of your dough. So we'll do that. make sure you leave 1/3 of it without any butter mixture on it at all. Try to get an even layer there. Get it all the way out to the edges. Simple as that. And you take the 1/3 of the dough that has no butter on it and bring it in that way, fold it over that way. You want to fold your dough into thirds. Press down and fold over the last part. Perfect. Like I said, not difficult to do at all. I have a baking sheet here lined with wax paper, and I'm going to put that in, fold side up, like so. We're going to set that aside for half an hour. You want the butter in that. Your aim and your goal with this is to let the butter thoroughly chill so that when you re-roll and refold it, the butter won't melt into the dough. You want it to create the layers that way, the layers in the pastry. So we're going to let this sit for half an hour, and then we're going to re-roll it again. We're going to do 4 turns like this. This would be the first. After half an hour, we take our pastry out of our baking sheet and roll it out again. It's going to be a little stiffer because it's chilled. That's exactly what you want. You want to be careful not to press down too hard and work the butter into the dough. So as you see, we put that fold side up, and we just want to roll it out to the original size that it was. Still a very malleable dough, still very easy to work with, even though it's chilled. If you need to flour a little bit while you're doing it, that's fine too. Goes very quickly. You actually want it to go quickly because you don't want your butter to melt. That's our second turn. We have to do this 2 more times. We're going to take it and fold it into thirds again. Place it in our tray, our baking sheet, fold side up again, and let that chill for another half an hour. After half an hour, we take our pastry out, flour our surface well again, make sure it's well floured, place it up with the seam lengthwise, and roll it out again. After you've rolled it out, again, we can mark it. We'll put 3 indents there and place it back on our baking sheet. We have one final fold and roll to do. We'll then make our cream cheese filling and prepare this to go into the oven. This will be our final roll. Again, we take it off our baking sheet onto our surface, flour it, it's well chilled now. Roll it over. And we just want to roll it out as we did before, to the same size. Once it's rolled out and we fold it back over, we're going to let it rise. And we're going to make our cream cheese filling. As I said before, the only thing you want to make sure of is that you get it the right thickness. You want to get an even thickness all around. And that's good. Again, we fold into thirds. This will be our last and final fold. Place on our baking tray. Fold side up again. And pop in the fridge while we prepare our cream cheese filling. Making our cream cheese filling is very simple. We're going to need 8 ounces of cream cheese, 1 package, that works out too. A little bit of lemon zest, which I've already put in there. About a teaspoon of vanilla, we're going to add that in as well. And 4 tablespoons of sugar. We're going to cream our sugar into the rest of our ingredients. You don't even need a mixer for this. See, it creams together nicely. I just take it out just before that last roll on it. Beat our egg. And if you're working with large eggs, just take 3/4 of it. You don't need to add all of it. We're going to save some for an egg wash. So just add 3/4 of that to your cream cheese mixture. And set some aside for your egg wash. We cream that together well. Just scramble it as if you were mixing eggs. It'll cream together really nicely. It won't be lumpy or anything. And that's it. You have your cream cheese filling. And we're going to set that aside right here and proceed to roll out and fill our pastry. Making something like this, in order to get that puff, you want to have your oven heating to above 400 degrees. Otherwise your pastry won't puff. You have to have it heated to over 400 degrees. You can go anywhere, depending on your oven, between 420. So we take our pastry seam side up, and we want to roll this out to approximately a 12 by 16 size. So again, you just roll out. You want to get a nice rectangle out of this. have your rectangle. You can perfect the edges by using a metal ruler and get them perfect. Is you take a sharp knife and you want to measure evenly. So you just place your ruler and slice on each side. Four inches in. And again, just keep going down. Use the size of your ruler as a guide, the width of your ruler as a guide. You can make them wider if you prefer. I like the 1 inch. It gives the pastry a very nice finish. Once that's finished, I take a cream cheese filling and just put it in the center. And just spread it in there. After that, we take approximately 4 tablespoons of strawberry preserves and we drop that on there. Just aim for the center. You can use any preserve you like. I just happen to be using strawberry today. Raspberry goes very nicely with this, as does apricot. There are 1,000,001 fillings that you can come up with for your Danish. And that's basically it. As I said, very easy, aside from the rising time, not much to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this first set and wrap it down like that. You also take the bottom one and do the same with it. Fold it into your cheese filling like so. Bring those together. Once you have that done, you just keep taking and folding over. Make sure you pinch down against the dough so that they don't come apart as they're baking. Comes together very nicely. As I pinch it down there against the other little bit of dough that's running along the sides. And just braid across like that. We will cut off those bottom two. Make sure you pinch that. And this is ready. We can transfer it to our pan. It's very easy, you just lift it up like that. Be a little cautious, try not to have it fall apart on you. I'm going to bake it right on the wax paper. Brush it with our egg wash. We don't want to forget that. We're just going to take our egg wash, and this will give it a nice bit of color. Just crisscross it across the top there, and on the sides. At that point, I like to add a little bit of almond on top. What I like to do is use blanched almonds. I buy raw almonds. I blanch them. I have them. I let them split in half on their own. I like this. I prefer this much better than the pre-sliced flakes. It's not processed. And you just sprinkle them on there. There's no need to overdo it. These will look pretty when it cooks up. Just a couple of tablespoons will do. Try to make sure they're on there and not sitting on top of each other so they don't scoot off on you. And that's it. Your Danish is ready. Your oven has to be a certain temperature for your puff pastry to rise. And this needs a little bit of rise time too. So we're going to let this sit for about 20 minutes. It's already been 10 minutes in the working, and the oven's been preheating for 10 minutes. So we're going to give it another 20 minutes and then pop it in the oven. Our pastry is ready. We're going to put it in the oven, like I said, at a temperature of at least 400 degrees, depending on your oven, 400 to 425. I had put this, I forgot to mention earlier, that I had placed this in the fridge for the half hour. You do want this chilled. You don't want the butter warming. To bake for about 20 to 25 minutes and just bake until golden brown. Our pastry is ready. It's out of the oven. Came out beautifully, nice and golden brown. What we're going to do is transfer it to a wire rack so it can cool, and we're going to make some icing that we can drizzle on the top. To make our icing, we're going to need about a tablespoon of very practically melted, very softened butter. We're going to need half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar, and we're just going to add our powdered sugar to our butter. I'm going to stir just a little bit. Our butter is practically melted, so it goes very easily. We're going to add just a few drops of vanilla into that, and stir that up as well. And if you want a semi-transparent icing, you can use water. I like a really bright white icing for this, so I'm going to use milk for that. That's what makes the difference between a semi-transparent and a very, very white icing is using water or milk. So today we're going to use milk. We're just going to take that and drop a little bit in there. It's usually about 1 or 2 tablespoons that you need. Just stir until you have the consistency you want. And we're not going to add this to it while it's hot. We're going to wait for that to be thoroughly cooled. We're going to pop it in the fridge for a little while. And you want to beat this really well. The more you beat it, the smoother and silkier it'll become. So I want to add just another drop or so. Like I said, I want to be able to drizzle it on. And that's about the consistency I want. That'll give me a nice drizzle. That's perfect. I don't know if you can see that. It drizzles on. It'll drizzle on nicely to that. So we're going to set this aside. We're going to let our Danish cool. We're going to pop it in the fridge and chill it thoroughly. And then we're going to be able to drizzle our icing onto it and serve. Once our pastry is cooled and we've transferred it to a serving plate, as you can see, it came out really nicely. Beautiful, beautiful color. The pastry is very, very flaky. It came out very nicely. I highly suggest making something like this. It's a whole different experience than a Danish you would purchase at a store, or even using a commercially prepared puff pastry. You can't get the cardamom in there. It's a whole different taste experience. It's really, really worth doing something like this. It's a very nice treat. What I like to do with the frosting is transfer it into a little bag. Just pop it in there. You can put this in a cup, but it's a small amount of frosting that we're using, so it goes in easily. Just pop your glaze in there. It's just the right texture. Check the texture. Make sure that you'll be able to get a nice drizzle there. Put it in your bag. If I was working with a larger amount, I'd place it in a cup to try to get that in there. But this is not a large amount. This just makes for a prettier finish. Like I said, you could also just drizzle on with your spoon. I like to avoid getting those heavy drips. I like having it all come out uniformly. So I do it this way. Once that's in your bag, close your bag, twist it up, pull your icing, or your glaze actually, because it's not a true icing, down to the bag, bottom of the bag, squeeze the air out, and with a sharp knife, just pierce a little hole there. And this way you can get a nice uniform drizzle onto your pastry. And we're done. We have wonderful Danish. Like I said, it really, really came out nicely. It's very enjoyable. If during the baking process it seems as if your pastry is getting too much color on the top, you can either lower the temperature after the first 10 minutes. You can lower the temperature down to 350, or you can try covering it with a bit of aluminum foil, which I try to avoid doing. I prefer to lower the temperature if needed than to have foil come in contact with the food, especially with the cream cheese and the strawberry preserves. I think you'll really enjoy it. I hope you try it. I hope you enjoy it. Till next time.